right, welcome back, everybody, to another edition of IDRYB Reacts. I am your host, Lutch, and today we are finally going through the last part of closing arguments in the Amber Heard versus Johnny Depp defamation trial. You may have seen that we went through the rest of closing arguments. What I meant to do was do Johnny's lawyers in one video and then Amber's lawyers in a different video, but the stream I was using chopped it up and clipped it up, and so we did some. I didn't have time to finish, but we are back here, and brilliantly, I'm in my work clothes because I went to a client half hour away that is scheduled for 4:30 p.m., but I went at 12:30 p.m. So now I am back home. We're doing this. Hopefully we can get in, get out, and I will be able to get back to work, and I can just cry about the wasted gas silently. So without further ado, let's get into the video.
Yeah.
I get to say good afternoon. And I know you've been listening to everybody for a long time here, and I echo Ben's very strong thank you to all of you for this extreme.
She's on the clock. She's on the clock. Let's hear what she says.
I'm going to go really fast and try to go as quick as I can so that you can get a break from us and go make your decision. I know you're probably itching to do it at this point, but this is very important to us, and we appreciate you listening, and we appreciate you being here. I'm going to stay on this slide for a moment, and there's something that's very important on this slide that hasn't.
So notice already how quickly she's speaking. You know, remember, there is less than an hour left of time on Amber's side. I think Johnny's side had like 10 hours at this point. But they are on the clock. So she is running through this stuff, which actually works out for me, but
been brought to your attention by Mr. Depp's team. When you see the actual damages, go down to the last paragraph, if you will. It says, Mr. Depp cannot recover damages for any harm that occurred after November 2, 2020. Do you all see that? So what Mr. Depp's team got up here and told you through Mr. Chu this morning has nothing to do with this case. He had his chance in the UK. The lawsuit was filed June 2018, 6 months before.
So remember, this is not the first time they've been in court. And so what she's talking about is the fact that when they had an incident in the UK a few years ago, stuff that was brought up again in this trial. But again, the scope of the trial is not the relationship. It is not who was the better partner, who was the worst partner. The scope of the trial is the defamation in the Washington Post op-ed that Amber wrote.
For the op-ed. The trial was July 2020. The process ended, according to Mr. Marks, their expert, on November 2, 2020. And his damages stopped then. He can't get reputational damages. He can't get his legacy back for his children. He can't get anything after that day from you. You can't restore his reputation. You can't give him anything. They didn't.
Which sounds to me like a perfectly good argument why you would give him money. If you have damaged his reputation and that reputation cannot be restored, then it sounds like you owe the man money. No?
Maybe. Tell you that, but the court told you that. And that's a very, very important thing here. He told his story. He had his opportunities. He had his full opportunities to do all of that. And he came in here and lied to you and said he's here to get his reputation back. It's just one of many lies in this case, but it's a really big one, because here we are.
In no way is that a lie. Even though she just made the claim that his reputation cannot be restored, that's exactly what we're here for. The exact explicit purpose is to say, okay, did Johnny really do these things, or was he defamed by what Amber said? Now, it is a little bit muddier than that, because they were both very toxic to each other. But again, in the specific purview of what they're talking about, his reputation as a domestic abuser is on the table, and it's out there. And so that is precisely what he's trying to get back. And if you're saying he can't get it back, then sounds to me like you're saying your client owes him money.
6 weeks of your time, precious time, 6 weeks of this court's time, for what? For nothing. Only to go after Amber. That's psychological abuse. He's going after Amber for nothing because he wants to put her through this again, the third time. So we're fighting back, and that's the counterclaim. She finally has said enough.
She's fighting back, but she's the one who wrote the op-ed.
Enough. And we're asking you to finally hold this man responsible. He has never accepted responsibility for anything in his life. He's heard it this whole time. He hasn't admitted to anything. He's blamed everybody in the world, his agent, his manager, his lawyer, Amber, his friends, everybody. But he's never accepted responsibility for a thing he's done in his life. But
he's been saying all throughout the trial, all of the things that he's done, including, you know, the entire notion of Johnny the Monster. That came from Johnny. The fact that he needs to do better. We saw emails between him and Amber's mom and what up, a free ego? I do got to do that. But if you see the replay, I'm short on time, but I promised I would do this. So we are doing it. But thank you for showing up. Yeah, I forgot what I was saying, but yeah, we saw that Johnny was very open with taking accountability for the things that he did wrong, specifically the drugs and stuff that they've been harping on so much. He admitted to all of that. So again, I don't know what it is that she's talking about.
Asking you to accept, to make him accept responsibility, to hold him legally responsible for his actions, and to fully and fairly compensate Amber for what he has done by creating this concept of a hoax for the defamation that he has committed, that you have heard so much about, that just took a wildfire and went off into negative media and has made Amber's life pure hell up to this day. We're asking you to do that, to compensate her, to be fair and hold him responsible so he stops. We don't want another lawsuit. We don't want anything else. We want to leave Amber alone and let her get on with her life and raise her child. So let's talk about the counterclaim for a moment. These are Adam Waldman's statements. You've heard Mr. Depp say, well.
So the counterclaim. Don't forget, this isn't just about the op-ed. This is also a defamation case going the other way, that saying that because of all of this trial bullshit, and that Johnny is defaming Amber's name by putting her through all of this and saying that she is making all of this up. So she's suing him for $100 million.
Why aren't you suing Mr. Waldman? Isn't that typical of Mr. Depp? He doesn't take responsibility for anything. So now he's going to blame his lawyer. But the evidence is very clear.
Again, Mr. Waldman was a lawyer representing Johnny in that UK case. And that guy made a statement about how Amber had a hoax, used that word, but Johnny never did. So why would he take credit for it? He didn't say it. That's not how that works.
Statements, and we'll show them to you in a minute, that he says Adam Waldman, Mr. Depp's attorney, says these things. Now, Mr. Depp says, oh, I didn't even know about those until the counterclaim. Well, we know that's not true because Mr. Waldman's testimony was 2 months before those statements were made. In February of 2020, Mr. Depp accompanied Mr. Waldman to the Daily Mail, the same place that all three of these statements were published. And he gave him 2 spliced audio tapes to try to make it look like Amber was the person who was committing the abuse. He went
cracking up.
He knew that Mr. Waldman was doing this. He knew that Mr. Waldman was launching a campaign against Amber to try to discredit her. And the timing of this, we're talking, the statements now are April and June of 2020. The trial is July of 2020. So they're launching an attack to try to discredit Amber before the trial in the UK. That's what happened here. And that is Mr. Waldman, but it's Mr. Depp. The judge gave you 3 different instructions and you all have them. He's acting as his attorney. He has the authority. So Mr. Depp is standing in the shoes of Mr. Waldman. Mr. Waldman is standing in the shoes of Mr. Depp. Michelle, can you please bring up the first statement?
I don't think grandma's going to kill it.
No.
Amber and her friends in the media use fake sexual violence allegations as both a sword and shield, depending on their needs. They have selected some of her sexual violence hoax facts as the sword, inflicting them on the public and Mr. Depp.
So this is the statement that Adam Waldman, Depp's lawyer, as it says, made about Amber. And so because of this, this is what Amber's team is using to say that Johnny defamed Amber. Meanwhile, it's perfectly fine that she wrote an entire op-ed and she's not responsible for that. But Johnny Depp's old lawyer said something, and now Johnny is supposed to pay $100 million for that.
Now, what this statement is meant to imply is that Amber is lying about the sexual assaults and using them with the media to try to discredit Mr. Depp. That's the clear implications of this. Now, the first part of this is this contradicts Mr. Depp's claims today that the first time you ever heard about the sexual assaults that happened was in this case. It was in the UK case. This is the case that Mr. Depp brought in the UK. And instead of Amber Heard trying to put this out in the media, she did exactly the opposite. Now, this article is not in your evidence book. At least some of you will remember it being shown at one point with the title that said that Amber was successful in being able to treat her allegations of the sexual violence confidential in that proceeding. And it was treated confidential. She did exactly the opposite. She didn't want to tell people this. And you know that. You watched her on the stand. It was heart-rending for her to have to do this with the cameras, no less. But what else is false about this statement? It's that there was no false statements of sexual violence. Ben went through all four of them, and I will not repeat them all. You heard the testimony. And interestingly enough, you didn't hear any stories that differed from that with Mr. Depp. He didn't get on the stand and say, no, this didn't happen to at least a couple of them. And he can't in Australia. He can't.
Yeah, because what was said to have happened was drinking, fighting, Johnny trying to walk away, and Amber hitting him. That's what he didn't deny. What he denies and vehemently denied was actually putting hands on her. So again, Grandma, what you talking about? What are you saying?
I don't remember anything likely, but if you just look at the pictures of the destruction in that house, I mean, imagine painting those cameras.
Yeah, remember all the pictures that Amber took of all the damage except the damage to her. Plenty of broken things around, plenty of racks of clothes thrown over, all of that stuff. Yes, we have pictures of that. We've seen that. What we haven't seen is any evidence or any testimony aside from Amber's sister that Johnny actually laid hands on her. So that is what is needed to make the defamation not defamation. If the article accurately describes what Johnny did to her, then the op-ed is all good. But all the things that you're talking about are not what is in the op-ed. That's not what they're talking about.
And how long that took, and how much hatred and rage you have to have for somebody to do something like that. Writing on the walls, tearing up her nightgown and wrapping pieces of raw steak and putting it all over the house. Remember that he also testified that he took her clothes and swiped them through all the paint before she left. These things happened. With respect to the malice on this one, he knows that he did these things. You know that he knows he was out of it for 3 days. And that's all that we need to prove for malice. But there's a couple of more facts here. But you can find whatever Mr. Waldman's done, and you can find whatever Mr. Depp has done. And both of those are the same for purposes of evaluating the verdict form. They stand in each other's shoes. When you have an agent, and that's what the jury instructions say, you can go with both. What did Mr. Waldman do? There was an article about the sexual violence that he had put from the April one that went into the trial. Amber's testimony, she was sitting near him in the trial. Adam Waldman threw that newspaper down in front of her defiantly. That's actual malice. And she was quite upset. And you heard her testimony on the stand about that. He was just inflicting it on her. Remember Bruce Whitkin's testimony? This was Johnny Depp's best friend for 40 years.
She's just babbling. I know that she doesn't have much time, but it seems like instead of pointing out the highlights of their case against Johnny, she's just trying to throw every little thing, which further goes to say that even their highlights are not that good. So they've got to pull every single little piece of thing that they, piece of evidence, circumstantial, that they had against Johnny and stack it all up together and hope that it looks like guilt. But this is not a good way to do that.
Until he testified truthfully 4 years ago about the drugs and alcohol, and he stopped talking to him. There was a couple of really important things that Bruce Whitkin said. One of the things is he said he met Adam Waldman once. Adam Waldman said, "Do you have any dirt on the Mendells?" And he said no, and that was it. And he didn't care. He is an attack dog. All he wants to do is attack and put dirt on people. The second thing that Whitkin said that I think was pretty instructive was that Johnny Depp has deep-seated anger issues that have nothing to do with Amber. He remembered even back when Johnny was married to his sister-in-law, he had extreme jealousy even back then. And I think
so if the anger has nothing to do with Amber, and we've seen his anger go in different places, and again, especially with Kate Moss testifying, nobody before or since has ever had any of these issues with Johnny, then again, what exactly is your case?
that's pretty significant. Remember, Mr. Whitkin also was called in a few times to intercede in some of these fights between Johnny and Amber when Johnny would become so angry. The last thing I thought he said that was actually pretty important was that Kipper and his whole group are a scam. He said, how is it that they can be sober doctors, for these years, and he's never sober? He's even taking pot all the time. How can you be sober? I thought that was quite instructive. But in any event, going back to, that's the first statement. The second statement, Michelle, if you can bring that one up. Oh, before I go there, I want to talk about a few more things from Mr. Waldman that you have in your pocket to be able to find additional malice with him. Remember, he's the one that after the UK trial went to the LAPD with a notebook full of things and tried to get perjury.
This is the same thing she put up before. The same thing she put up before.
Charges against Amber. The LAPD said, we don't investigate those things. But he then went to a German newspaper and said, Amber is being investigated by the NYPD or the LAPD for perjury. Do you remember that? That's malice. That's showing his intent to do harm to Amber. He also admitted that he speaks to that umbrella guy, and you'll see that one text in there from the person from TMZ. That umbrella guy is the big lead of Johnny Depp's, positive social media that is putting all negative out on Amber Heard.
So she's talking about the guy who came in and testified working at Hicksville, where they went and there was supposedly an incident, and Amber testified that Johnny was being irate and grabbed somebody by the wrists and all this kind of stuff. And then the manager came in and testified. The manager had actually heard about the case and contacted somebody that goes by the umbrella guy. I'm not really too familiar. Come on, Morning. And who was following the trial and got in touch with Johnny's legal team and was able to go and actually testify and be like, no, it was actually Amber who was not looking so who was not acting so nicely that night. And I didn't see anything from Johnny Depp. But the lawyer right now is trying to argue that that guy only came in and testified because he wanted his 15 minutes of fame, where he very easily could have come in on the other side and just wanted to get his 15 minutes of fame, and it would have been a lot more fame to be the guy that came in and was able to finger point Johnny for doing any of this stuff. Because again, nothing in Amber's testimony or any of their witnesses has tied him directly to this.
And he also ended up getting knocked out of Twitter because he was abusing Amber. So now we go to the second counterclaim statement. And that's quite simply, this was an ambush, a hoax. They set Mr. Depp up by calling the cops, but the first attempts didn't do the trick. The officers came to the penthouses, thoroughly searched and interviewed, and left after seeing no damage to face or property. So Amber and her friends spilled a little wine, roughed the place up, got their story straight under the direction of a lawyer and publicist, then placed a second call to 911. Now this is May 21.
Thank you,
now,
Jimmy
the clear
Allen. Thank you
implication
for saying
here
that.
is that they're saying that Amber got together with her friends. They decided they were going to set Johnny up to be charged for domestic violence. And so they called the police and they tried to make up this whole story, get him arrested, but the police said there's no evidence here, and went away. And they said, darn. And so they spilled wine and they, busted up the place, and they called 911. They got advice from a lawyer and a publicist, called 911 and tried again to get Johnny charged. That
makes sense to me.
That's what this says. Now we all know that's false, and it's heinously false.
Do we know that's false? We've seen the pictures that were edited. We've seen the video that TMZ got, and the guy from TMZ testified that the only way he could have gotten the video as quickly as he did is if he got it from the source, and Amber testified to taking the video. And the TMZ guy went through the whole process of how they get videos, and it's got to go through this person, they got to verify this and that, But he got the video of Johnny slamming the cabinets around the day after his mother died within 15 minutes. And so, trying to say that that's bullshit is again, projection on their side. It's really Amber who's using that as a pawn in her argument.
Because, after these events happened, and Ben talked about a little bit of it, but I'll talk about the rest of it, and I'm going to try to do it really quickly. But we all know
She's running out of time.
Everything in her power not to tell them who Johnny was, not to press charges, not to have him arrested. The exact opposite of this. But what were the facts of May 21st? He comes over. He's already been drinking. He's already high. And he is on a tear about feces in bed.
Again, here they go again, talking about him being in an angry and or inebriated state to tie that to violence. And that's just not how it works. You need something more. Being drunk and angry does not mean that you are violent. That is not how it works.
From a month ago. And remember how Amber talked about these drug-induced things. He gets into these paranoias and he gets some idea in his head and he just won't let it go. And that was his this time. There's somebody put that feces in the bed a month ago. That was his spin. So she gets
Look at Johnny's face
on the phone. He's in New York at the time. He's going.
The lawyer just finished asking if we thought it was reasonable that Amber would fake all of this stuff with the wine bottles and everything. But we know that she shit in his bed. So if she's gonna do that, spilling some wine isn't really that big of a stretch, is it? Exactly.
They thought this is ridiculous. Of course nobody did. And by the way, Boo has this huge problem. Of course it was Boo. He's always doing this. But Johnny just won't get there. So then they laugh. That makes him mad. Then he throws the phone at Amber. Amber screams out and says, "Ow, you just threw the cell phone at me. It hurts." Io says, "Amber, get out of there." Johnny gets madder, pulls her hair, grabs her and starts hitting her. So Io gets hold of Rocky Pennington. She comes over as quickly as she can. She goes and gets in between the two of them. She puts her hands up on his chest. He pushes them down. And then she continues to stand in between them. And he's screaming loudly 10 times, "Amber, get the fuck up. Amber, get the fuck up. Amber, get the fuck up." Loudly. Then his bodyguards hear this. They come in. They break it up. That's how.
Now, again, let's be fair. It's stories like that make sense to me. That he was angry, he was fucked up, and they were arguing, and he was yelling at Amber. But the bodyguards came in, broke everything up, and nobody testified to anything. And did something awry go down? Maybe. I don't know. I wasn't there. But when we see the amount of recording, the amount of pictures and audio and all of this stuff that Amber has, it's just so convenient that she has nothing that ties Johnny to anything. She doesn't even have anything that ties Johnny to doing any of these drugs. She has pictures of him asleep. She has pictures of him drinking, but she doesn't even have pictures of him doing drugs or anything like that.
That happens. But the next part of this, remember Josh Drew, and I think Elizabeth Mars was amazing in this one. Remember their testimony. After that, he goes and he has to, he always leaves a path of destruction as he's leaving. So he, bashes up things, and you saw Ben's pictures here on the picture frames.
Be like that.
As he's going, goes down the hallway. He's splashing the wine. He gets his bodyguards to let him into penthouse 5. That's where Josh and Elizabeth are trying to help with Rocky's bead thing for the next day. And he comes in storming in, and he says, "Get your bitch out of here!" And he's got the big magnum, and he's
This is crazy.
He's just terrified. She
Talk to him, Grandma.
met him 4 times, and she goes ripping out of there as fast as she can. And Josh gets out of there
Johnny's
too.
right.
Then what does he do? He rearranges the furniture, or he might have knocked something off, one of the countertops or something. I think is the testimony of his bodyguards. But you saw the pictures. He went through and trashed that place again as he left. Now the next part of this is the police coming.
Grandma's talking her shit.
He calls the New York Police 911. He's afraid they're not going to get there fast enough. He still remembers December 15 because he came in afterwards and saw all of the injuries on Amber and all the evidence. And he's terrified that Amber's still in there. The police haven't come and that Johnny's going to kill her. So he calls a friend in LA and says, "Please call 911. We got to get somebody there fast." So she calls 911. So we have 2 calls, and you'll see the call summary. And the call summary shows those 2 calls really close in proximity here. So it's not them, we didn't get the first police officer, so we'll rough up the place and make a second one. You'll see that they're like 8 minutes apart up there. But it took 2 hours to dispatch the 2 different ones. And Amber never even had
So I just want to stop real quick because she's boring the hell out of me. And remember that this is, other than, the jury instructions, this is the last thing that the jury is going to hear. Right now, they are deliberating. They've just started deliberations. So this is from last week, but this is the last thing that they heard. Just Amber's lawyer frantically firing this. Remember, this happened, and then that happened, and then Johnny did this, and then Johnny did that. I don't think this was a good strategy. But remember, there's something at the end here that really stuck with me. So,
idea that the second one was coming. The first one's coming. And, we've talked about it. We've shown you the pictures. The police officers admitted that those pictures could very much have been what was there that night. Remember, Officer Haddon, it was his first week on the job. Officer Science was three years on the job at that point. They say, they told Josh that if she will press charges, if she'll give a name, we can file a report and make an arrest. She wouldn't do it. You did hear from Detective Sandanaga. That's the domestic violence.
All right, there is an objection. Let me just take this moment to shout out the.
So again, when Johnny's lawyers were doing closing arguments, the lead attorney, whose stream we are using, thank you very much, lead attorney. He was a 20-year divorce attorney. Was saying that during testimony, objections are they come out left and right, but during closing arguments, it's an unwritten rule that you don't really object unless it's something really far out there. So the fact that when Amber's lawyers objected to Johnny's closing now opens the door to like, okay, well, now we're not gonna, give you that courtesy. You objected to us, so we're gonna object to you. And then keeping in mind the fact that, again, grandma's on the clock here. So every time that they got to stop and go up to the judge's bench and talk about this and, this is what, then it's burning more and more time. And it gives, it increases the pressure that grandma needs to get her points out. And I think they should have just cut it, maybe used half as many points as they do and dug into each point a little bit more. Or maybe when I think it's Bob, the other lawyer, maybe he should have gone a little bit faster when using the actual evidence and, again, picking like half of the stuff that they actually did, focusing on the real, what they thought were the real winners, and focusing on those so that at this point she's not rushing through like this. How can this be helpful?
Linda Ballard. Shout out to Linda Ballard, man. I love her so much. She's awesome. Got her content creation going on. Coming out with the channel real soon. Thank you so much. She is the co-sponsor,
right, well,
along with, of course, Miss Machio. Also, let me hit it one time for Chandra. Chandra G, she just bought the course. Shout out to Chandra, guys, if you are interested.
She can't be
in this course.
Let's see. So yeah, when they're objecting, this is all time that counts against Amber's attorneys. And what you can tell with how quickly she's talking that, with how quickly she's talking, that she knows she doesn't have a lot of time left.
Said that. But in any event, she would not cooperate. She didn't want to. But Detective Sandanaga, their domestic relations or domestic violence person, said they should have done an incident report no matter what, even if they decided there wasn't a crime. Because domestic violence, it has the cycles. They come back, and it's good to have the record for the next time that
which she doesn't have.
She said they should have under the circumstances, even if they didn't. And she also said that when they put verbal dispute only in those calls, it is a code that they use, and you'll see that it's twice on that call report. So they to say that's why we didn't write a report. But
verbal dispute only. Interesting.
Whether the police officers, forgot about it 2 months later when they were first asked about it, whether they just decided she's never going to press charges, and you'll see on the call report they're insisting that to the second set, it doesn't make any difference. The point is, this is still false. This statement is still false because Amber did everything but try to press charges against Johnny.
And again, this is just Morty. Sorry, we got the landscapers here, and Morty loves them. But again, they've got up here the same exact statement that they put up twice before, and they just put it in a different format here. They're not presenting any new evidence with this.
So they go away. And the testimony is that Josh and Amber and Rocky cleaned up because they have dogs. So they cleaned up a lot of the glass and the wine and those types. Okay. They had no idea the second police officers were coming by, and they certainly didn't call them, and they certainly didn't talk. They never talked to a publicist. She did talk to a lawyer who gave her advice, and that's why she wouldn't tell them, anything. She said, I'm not going to cooperate at all. So the second one's coming. You saw that. You've got the video cameras in there. You see, there's no effort by them to try to get now these officers to press charges against Johnny Depp. Just the opposite. Josh Drew doesn't want to even let him into place. They come through quickly. Everything's fine. They wave. Everything's fine. Are they trying to press charges against Johnny? No, they're not trying to do anything. They're trying to get him out of there, which makes this statement 100% false.
Grandma just rambling.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
She's just rambling.
It's been 15 minutes.
Johnny knew that. But the other thing that's very helpful and what you should look at is Defendant's Exhibit 772.
Grandma's like, and another thing.
Because once again, the next day, Johnny apologizes to Amber. He says in two different.
Look at that zoom in. Zooming in to Johnny.
He says, my profound apologies in one of them, and my apologies are eternal in the other one. What is he apologizing for the next day on May 22nd if he didn't know that he did all of those things? And by the way, remember Isaac Baruch even remembers the wine in the hallway. None of the police officers remember the wine. And that's because they're busy and they got a zillion other things going, and they didn't remember this call 2 months later when they were asked about it. So that's the next one. So clearly that's 100% false. Clearly they knew it. Clearly there's malice in making that statement. They're trying to suggest that she's making.
There's not anything clear about anything that she's saying. I don't know what. I don't even remember the claim that she's referring to that she's saying is false. So again, this is very for $6 million that Amber's paying for this legal team. This is the closing. Closing arguments are supposed to be, you get a lot more leeway in terms of what you're allowed to say and what you're allowed to reference, and you can play it up and you can be a lot more emotional, and you can say that, oh, Johnny, did this to her and did that to her, and Amber was this angel that never did anything. You can get away with a lot more of that in closing arguments. And instead of crafting a story, what she's doing is just taking every tiny little bit of kind of evidence and trying to, again, stack it on top of each other and just make it seem like there's this whole heap of evidence, when really you look into it and it's just, there's nothing there. There's nothing there. And she's trying to hide that by just throwing everything at the wall and seeing what sticks.
Evidence with her friends to try to frame Mr. Depp. Nothing could be further from the truth on that one. And she did not want those police officers to press charges. Now let's go to the third one. Oh, and let's talk about the makeup just for a moment.
Oh, and more of this.
This makeup thing, fresh-faced, natural. These were Adam Waldman planting these when he talked.
Again, this is the fourth time in 3 different formats that they've put this up. This exact phrase.
The ECB people, remember the testimony here. We kept asking, so did you talk to Mr. Waldman? Did you talk to Mr. Waldman? Mr. Waldman was trying to plant in all of these people's
objection, Your Honor.
Somehow, she wasn't. The approach.
All right. Y'all know that objections are not favored during closing. However, since Amber's team objected to Johnny's team twice during the closing, all bets are off. Oh, we objected now. Like if you're not going to follow the rules, we are not either. We have the beautiful AV. AV, introduce yourself really quickly while they're on break.
Hi, everybody.
Sorry, AV, but we're going to get back into the trial. But shout out to both of them, great content creators, and definitely go check out the lead attorney and AV to the 7th power. Getting back into it.
Hoax, but there is no abuse hoax. I don't need to tell you all of the evidence because Ben did a beautiful job of just taking you through all of those different things. But I will point out a couple things for you. And that is, remember Bonnie Jacobs, the therapist. Dr. Hughes and Dr. Spiegel testified about Bonnie Jacobs' notes. And remember that I was holding that, you don't get to see them, but they testified that they went through them. Dr. Hughes testified that she also spoke with Bonnie Jacobs. She kept contemporaneous notes from 2011 when she first started seeing Amber. And the abuse is documented in those notes, is what Dr. Hughes testified to. They start in 2012, both physical and
objection, Your Honor.
Dr. Hughes.
Oh, number 3
again. Listen.
What is she saying?
Who knows? Like everybody's checked out. She doesn't talk with any cadence. It's just all just. It's a word salad, right? Is anybody really picking up what she's putting down?
That's no evidence references either.
Right. It's just kind of going in and out, right? Look at the braid. Shout out to Mr. Mustachio. This is crazy.
Come on,
yes, y'all guys know AV. AV is a lost.
All right, getting back into it.
Dr. Bonnie Jacobs notes.
So they're talking about the lawyer, or excuse me, the doctors, the psychologists, psychiatrists that came in and talked to Amber and documented that she had like PTSD and all of this stuff. But there was 1 or 2 doctors on Amber's side, and there was like 3 or 4 doctors on Johnny's side that came in and basically showed piece by piece why exactly Amber's doctors were clearly just paid to say what Amber wanted them to say. There were different tests that were used improperly. There was, one diagnostic which was supposed to be used for people in the past year, and they were using it for something over a year ago. Just bad form, just sloppy evidence, just not something that you would want to use.
Is physical abuse and sexual abuse throughout that time period. Dr. Spiegel confirmed that later and said the same. When I asked Dr. Curry if she had reviewed those notes, she said yes, but she had no comment. And
Your Honor, objection.
Damn!
more.
This is crazy.
They might be just
to be fair, Grandma started it. Grandma's team started it when Camille and Ben were up there. So now this whole courtesy, this whole respect about not objecting during the closing, that's out the window. That's out the window. And to be honest, this case is $150 million. This is war.
He had reviewed Bonnie Jacobs' notes.
We in the mud.
When I asked
Exactly.
Dr. Curry,
Getting
she
dirty.
had reviewed them, but she had no comment, but she also didn't deny that those were in there. Amber Heard testified that she went back, and because of Bonnie Jacobs' notes, she realized for the first time that the abuse started much earlier than she even realized before. She always had thought that it had started in 2013. When she went back and saw Bonnie Jacobs' notes, she realized that it had started much earlier, and she was very embarrassed by that. Now, significantly, you remember that she testified about how she was first called upon to actually detail all of her events of abuse in February of this year. And she went through and took the notes, took photos, she took everything she had, calendars, everything, put it all together, and you heard about at least 64 pages of detailed accountability of that. And Mr. Depp's team has been able to not refute any of that. Remember, they tried to impeach her and say, well, you didn't say that. She said, yes, I did, on page 64. Remember that?
Look at that face. Look at that face. What emotion is that? Who is
It was a very, very difficult process for her because there was an awful lot of it, and she put it in great detail. Now,
Camille smiling.
Let's talk for a moment
You
about
ain't got
motive.
nothing here.
How much time do you have? Did y'all see her just look at her watch? She just looked at her watch.
Has created this whole hoax, and I think Ben's done a nice job of showing how that can't possibly have been.
Ben, not Bob.
But what would Amber Heard's motive be for creating a hoax or creating any of this?
Look, oh my God. That is exactly the face. Like, what would her motive be? How about the $100 million? Sounds good to me.
Making any
$100
of this
million.
up? That's a big question here. They call her a gold digger, right? But
Yeah.
She obviously couldn't have done it for the money because, first of all, remember the testimony of Laura Wasser, the divorce attorney. She said that California is a no-fault state and community property. So Amber doesn't have to have an abuse. She could have.
But if Amber were to just do a no-fault divorce and take the money, all she has is the $7 million from the divorce. Now, because her star is so closely tied to Johnny, she needs something to create attention from that. If she just takes a divorce, she takes that $7 million and goes away. That's not what she wants. She needs to be the center of attention. She needs it to all be about her. Remember, it's not just that she's saying that this happened. This was an op-ed that she wrote. She was a spokesperson for the Me Too movement. She got a lot of attention from this. And so to be asking about her motives when they're very, very clear, again, is not, I'm not a lawyer, but not a route I would have taken in closing arguments, for sure. Definitely would have stayed away from that. Come on.
Divorced him for irreconcilable differences, for abandonment, for adultery, for anything. She doesn't need an excuse. And she gets 50% of whatever he earns during the time of the marriage.
And that's it. And then she goes away.
Post-nup. The testimony from Michelle Mulrooney was that Amber completely cooperated with the prenup and the post-nup, but it was Johnny Depp, who, and you already heard from Ben, he called her up and fired her. He didn't want a post-nup or a prenup. So she's entitled to 50% of everything he earned during that time.
Fair.
Now we have
That's fair.
Plaintiff's Exhibit 936 in evidence. And look at page 69. It says how much he made in 2015.
It's Game of Thrones.
Remember back Mr. Spindler, Depp's expert, who said that he made $22 million in 2016. So you got $65 million. Amber was entitled to 31.5 at least. That doesn't include all the back ends from, for example, Pirates 5. She was entitled to that money. So she didn't need to say anything. She could have just said, I don't like you anymore. I don't like the color of your hair. I'm going to divorce you.
Your Honor, we're going to object him.
Jesus, man. This is crazy. Let me give a huge shout out again. Y'all see her. Look at
Free Ego says she's not saying anything. The jury better come back with a unanimous opinion that Heard is a libelous and slanderous bitch. And I definitely agree with that. You know, I mean, what are you guys thinking? Does this is this at all convincing? You know, now remember, when we get to the part when they're talking about the jury instructions, that's where things get a little dicey. So we're closing in on that. So let's see if that changes any opinions. Where are we with this?
God, know how to take care of a brother. You know, just give me something to eat. You know, don't follow me from room to room if we get in an argument. Don't chop my movies. Now he's having to sue her and go through all of this just to get his name back.
Yeah.
Now, you know, who knows who's going to win, because, you know, it's a shit show either way. But, you know, you can certainly make the argument that he's won in the sense that he's got his name back.
Exactly.
At least 31.5. What does she take?
What's wrong with Grandma's audio?
What does she do with the $7 million? She gives it to charity.
Yeah, that's not me. She's all the way up.
Something happened. She probably moved the mic.
Exactly.
Both the corporate designees for ACLU and for Children's Hospital said donation and pledge are interchangeable. You know, these are pledges. The ACLU corporate designees.
So remember that little exchange between Camille, Johnny's lawyer, who's sitting, you know, right over here to his left, I don't know. That chick. She had Amber on the stand, and she was like, "Is it true that you, Morty? Is it true that you, I'm going to try, hold on. Is it true," she said, "that you donated the $7 million that you got from the divorce to split amongst the ACLU and the LA Children's Hospital?" She's like, "Yeah, I pledged the whole thing." I was like, no, that's not what I asked you. Did you at this point in time, have you donated the money? And so Amber has made the pledge. She said she will donate the $7 million across the two organizations, but the actual money that she has paid is very much less than that. I think it's like something like $250,000. And Amber was on the stand trying to say that she had paid it and that she simply uses the words pledge a donation and paid or made a donation interchangeably, when that's not what those words mean. And that's just a clear lie. And now her lawyer is trying to just say that, oh yeah, no, we can just use those words interchangeably. No, that's not how that works.
You typically do pledges because of the tax benefits. And that's what she said. She pledged it over a period of time because of the tax implications to it and because she was
No, that's not what she said. She said she paid it. That's what she said.
Paid over the time.
Look at
now
the
she
pose.
started to make these donations, and you'll see that the first one was on behalf of Mr. Depp's business manager, Mr. White, actually sent the letters with the $100,000 for each of those. That was the initial ones. He was trying to take credit for those, and in fact, both the ACLU and Children's Hospital got confused and gave the credit to Mr. Depp, not to Amber, for those. Then she made payments to both, and Elon Musk also made payments to both for $500,000 each, which she didn't come to her pledge, but they helped those organizations. At the end of the day, she's made $1 million in payments.
No, Elon Musk and Johnny have made $1 million in payments. She's made $1 million in pledges.
Them, but then she got sued here and hasn't been able to because she spent $6 million in attorney's fees. That is unrefuted.
That's $6 million wasted. Oh my goodness, this is bad.
She still intends to pay those pledges, honor those pledges. And she said that throughout. And I elicited from both the ACLU and from Children's Hospital, they haven't expired. She can pay them whenever she wants to, and she fully intends to. But she has to get out from under this first. Now, who would blame a woman for giving $1 million in charitable donations? Who would do that? That sounds like psychological abuse to me. Now, Mr.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well,
come on.
He hasn't written any big checks for him. Mr. Depp got on the stand and says he does it anonymously, but Mr. Mandel would have been the one writing the checks. And he says that didn't happen. Now let's go to damages, because I promised you I was going to go pretty fast here. there's a few different types of damages, but one of the things that the court has talked to you about, she told you.
So here is where she's getting into, again, the purview of what is it that they are looking at in this case. We heard a lot of evidence, we've heard a lot of stories, and a lot of stuff has been thrown around. But when it comes to the actual case, again, this is specifically about defamation. So she's now going to go into what the jury is looking at and what it would, what they would need to find the claim for Amber.
That because we have defamation, it's invidious, and therefore it's very difficult to prove these. And so these damages to business reputation, inconvenience, embarrassment are presumed. You don't have to prove those damages. And one great example of that is the testimony from Mr. Hamada at Warner Brothers. He didn't want to have to get in the middle of all of this with Aquaman 2. They haven't even released it. So he didn't read anything in preparation for his deposition. He didn't talk to anybody before his deposition. He said that he tried to do technicals and say, no, we never terminated her contract. But, oh, yeah, we did tell her we were probably not going to renew her option. And then we didn't change the script, but Amber got the script, and yes, they did change it. Then he said, no, Good. We never negotiate salaries, but oh yeah, we did renegotiate Jason Momoa's and Gal Gadot's. So he just doesn't want to admit that.
Again, remember that they brought up an expert witness talking about Q scores and how much money Amber lost. And she said it was the $100 million based on what Jason Momoa was making, based on what Chris Pine was making, based on what Gal Gadot was making. Honey, you ain't them. You ain't them.
Any of these things. But what came out in Hamada's deposition, and I hope you were listening carefully to this, was the email from James Wan, the director, and Jason Momoa, her co-star, who said they guarantee if they are in the film, she is going to be mirrored in the film. Why would they do that unless they thought Warner Brothers was being unfair to her? And why did she get almost...
Objection, speculation? So you can get away with a lot more of that stuff in closing arguments, but that's a silly thing. Who knows? Like, there's so much that goes into these Hollywood contracts to assume that, oh, they changed this and not that, because they were trying to help her, but they also took her part out. Like, what argument are you making?
Out of it because of the defamatory statements. When they came out, they took on a life of their own. Ron Schnell, the young Sheldon, I call him the Doogie Howser, our expert on IT, took you through and tracked how they tracked the defamatory statements, the language from the defamatory statements, how that went through the social media and the negative social media. And it kept going and kept going. And he tracked all the way until a few months ago, over 2.36 million negative tweets,
which again is not on Johnny.
Instagram's negative social media's comments about Amber that relate specifically to the information that was in those 3 defamatory statements. It took on a life of its own. They started to get Amber fired from Aquaman 2. They have continued to this day. They have followed her everywhere. Everybody has stopped wanting her. L'Oreal won't use her, even though they've kept her on from that time. She lost 3 different opportunities that were being discussed with her. The most significant part of that, though, is that Aquaman was the biggest blockbuster ever for DC Films. It was the biggest. It was over $1 billion.
So if that's the case, if Aquaman did so well and she was the supporting actress in that film, then there must be a reason why people don't want to work with her. And what she has failed to prove in this case is that is Johnny's fault.
Her opportunity for her star. Even the experts from Mr. Depp admitted this was her blockbuster. This was her mega. But what happened instead? As she's going through, as it's coming out, and in that 16 months they were going, well, nothing happened. Yeah, lots happened. She had 3 different films she was discussing. She got the L'Oreal contract. She got the Stand. All of those things were happening because of Aquaman. And then everything shut down. She wasn't allowed to do publicity for the Stand. She wasn't allowed to, hasn't been allowed to do anything for L'Oreal. She got shut down from her charitable organizations. She ended up not getting the Amazon movie. And then they gave her a hard time about Aquaman 2. And instead of the career trajectory of the other comparators who all went way up, and by the way, all the experts admit that career trajectory went well for all the rest of them, and she's the only one that didn't have it. And the reason is because of the defamatory statements. So you have some very good information to help you on ascertaining those damages.
That is a position that it was because of the defamatory statements. You have to make the argument to prove that. You can't just say it and be like, well, it's defamation, so it's defamation. That's what kind of law school did this lady go to? In what century?
Damages. Now, Jessica Kovacevic, and I don't know.
She looked at her watch again.
She was her agent.
She's on the clock.
Everybody just stopped. The producers don't want her. The directors don't want her. Nobody wants her. We just can't get the traction, and we should have been able to get the traction. And they say it's because of those statements. So Catherine Arnold gave you some good estimates on this, and she gave you a very good basis for it. And she didn't use Jason Momoa's or Gal Gadot's or the others. She used Amber's, but used those comparators to show that they got big movies, that they got commercial opportunities, that they got these TV opportunities. But she used the base that Amber had. So she used the $4 million from the Aquaman, that would be $3 million. She used the stands, you know, how much they got paid per movie, and what she estimated on those, and she went through those details.
So remember, you know, I'm stopping this stuff to explain to you guys, assuming that you haven't watched the trial, but this lawyer is talking to the jury who has been there the entire time. She's low on time to finish these closing arguments, and this is again supposed to be the big grand finale that you know gives them the reason to say, oh yes, of course we have to give Amber this money, or we can't make Amber pay this money to Johnny. And what is she's just rambling. She's just rambling. And as lead attorney said, she has no cadence. She's just talking like this, and then that happened, and then also remember that this happened, and then that happened, and then that happened. And we also said that Johnny did. Like, that's boring. That's boring. That's not going to help your case.
Is that if you took that for the last 2 years and projected into the next 3 to 4, that it's between $47 and $50 million that she could have had, instead of her star being completely extinguished. And that's what's happened to her. The emotional distress damages are even more extreme here. And that is, Don Hughes testified extensively about the PTSD and what she goes through. And every time she's called a liar, every time these hoax things come up, everything, it causes her to relive all of it. She talks about the panic attacks, the nervousness, the intrusive thoughts, the nightmares, all of the sweats, the anxiety that goes through all of this. It's significant. But
this is word salad.
Testimony ever here was from Amber yesterday. And
it's a buffet. It's not a salad anymore.
This has consumed her. She's getting death threats. Her daughter, they're threatening to put her daughter
on the like, we got this in the bag.
Get away from this. It's everywhere. This media, the social media that has just taken off, has just consumed her life. As she said, I'm a human being. No human being should be put through this. Now, Johnny Depp sued.
Put through what? Again, put through what? What exactly is this? You haven't made that clear. And I haven't heard an argument for anything that Johnny put her through that deserves $100 million.
For $100 million or for $50 million. And we sent the message back saying, fine, we're going to sue for $100 million because look at what you've done to her.
Petty as hell.
Exactly. Took the words right out of my mouth, TLA. That's petty. That's pettiness. So you're saying, well, he sued me for 50, so we're going to come back and sue him for 100. Not for anything else but spite. Is that supposed to be helpful to the jury? That, yeah, we're here out of spite because he did all this stuff to me that I can't actually prove, but you know, kind of, I have pictures of him sleeping, and I know that he did a lot of drugs, and I have emails of him saying mean things. $100 million because Jason Momoa. That's the argument here.
To give $100 million, we're asking you to just look at the damages in this case and just be fair and reasonable in whatever you determine by following the evidence and instructions. But we do ask that you fully and fairly compensate Amber for everything that she's been through, both in terms of reputation and emotional distress. The very last point.
She just admitted that Amber was petty. You're suing me for 50, I'm gonna sue you for 100. She just admitted that, and she's Amber's attorney. She's an idiot.
Thank you very much.
Shout out to Grandma.
Wow.
Shout out to Grandma. Just admitted that her client is being petty.
Jesus. We still have rebuttal closing arguments, but I can guarantee you that the rebuttal closing arguments will be done combined within 45 minutes. But what I want to do is go ahead and let you have your lunch. And then after lunch, we'll come back and we'll have rebuttal closing arguments, and then we'll submit the case to you. Okay? All right. So go ahead.
So they're done. So that is the end of the trial. That is the end of the trial. Like they said, there's a couple other administrative things, but this was last week. So right now, as we're speaking, the jury is in deliberation. I mean, while I've been doing this, they could have come back with a verdict. I don't know. But I definitely will be covering that. Let me know what you guys thought about all this. I think the case was always pretty weak, but especially ending on such a flat note. I really think, and especially that Johnny's lawyers ended on such a high note and really stuck it to the, really hit the hard points. I really think Johnny's in a good position. Again, what scares me is that we are not looking at who's right and who's wrong in the general situation. Again, the case is about specifically defamation. Did either of these people say something that they knew was incorrect with the intent of harming the name of the other person? And I think it's pretty clear that there's no way that Amber is going to get awarded $100 million in damages for having to go through this case. That's what the argument that they're making. I don't think that's going to happen by any stretch of the imagination. I would not expect that to come back. But remember that the other Amber's other lawyer said one time, if Johnny put his hands on Amber one time, then Amber wins, because what she put in the op-ed was not false. And when, you look at all of the evidence, there's nothing, there's no pictures of her with a beaten up face. There's no pictures with her. There's bruises here, there's bruises there, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's from him. She's got very light skin. She could be bruised by any little thing. But still, it's just one time. That's all it'll take. And so through all of the evidence that we saw, if the jury thinks that maybe even with all of that stuff, nothing was proven, but that they feel there's circumstantially enough evidence there that, with all of this here, even if we didn't specifically see evidence that this happened, it must have happened somewhere and she just didn't catch it. They can do that. That's what this trial is for. That's what they're here to decide. And I'm a little bit worried. I'm hoping, because everything that I've heard from people watching the trial, aside from the jury, it's very clear that this will go in Johnny's favor. But you really never know. And in the court of law, when it comes to jurors, you don't know who these jurors are. You don't know what their predispositions are. If maybe there's some survivors of domestic abuse. And if that's gonna change how they view all of this. Maybe there was people outside the courthouse all the weeks of the trial with people protesting, saying they stand with Amber. So it's not as clear cut as a lot of us want to think it is. I'm hoping again that the jury comes back, awards Johnny his money. Amber somehow has to come up with $50 million to give him. And that we finally have a case where a woman who is falsely accusing a powerful man of doing things that he didn't do simply because he is powerful. Remember, Amber's own attorney said she could have just divorced him for reconcilable differences and just left with the $7 million, not having to donate to anybody because she wouldn't be a celebrity anymore. She would just be Johnny's ex-wife. And I'm being a little bit facetious. Obviously, she's going to be an Aquaman too. But the star of her would have gone down dramatically. The irony is, if she didn't write that op-ed and she just went through the normal track that one of her witnesses was trying to say, that she could have made all of this money doing this, that. Look at what these people did. If she had just done that, instead of trying to jump in this culture aspect of and become a leader for the Me Too movement when there was no Me Too, there was no me. Because she had to do that, she got back into, and remember the recording, which said, you tell a judge and a jury that you were abused. You tell them, see who believes you. Well, I've said it before and I'll say it again. She got exactly what she asked for. Free Ego says, glad she got cut from most of Aquaman 2, even if I'm not going to watch it. I want to say that I am not going, that I don't want to watch it. But Aquaman was by far the best DC movie. And I don't care enough about, because we have the case and because we're going to have a ruling, I'm a little bit okay with supporting that movie, even though she's in it. And I'm not really one to boycott this, that, and the other. I tend to think that you should separate the art from the artist. It's not, I didn't do anything wrong. Why should I be robbed of the experience of watching this movie, which again is part of a larger cinematic universe, if I didn't do anything wrong? So but I definitely understand people who will boycott this film, and I will absolutely support them in doing so. I'm just not going to be one of them. That being said, that also is very true for Ego, that Aquaman was one of the better DC movies because the rest blow. But if they keep going, maybe they can get better. Who knows? But that being said, I'm also not going to go pay for it. Speaking of pirates, I'll leave that there. But again, what did you guys think? Between this video and the last one that we were going over, we went through all of the closing arguments. I didn't mean to go in the order that we went, but because the lead attorney, when we were streaming this live, the Sky News stream, which we have been watching, cut out. And so he had to go over to the Law and Crime YouTube channel, and they're very big with copyright strikes and stuff. So he had cut that out. Put the Sky News on top of the original stream and reposted that. So when we were watching it originally, I thought we were watching it live, as we're not live, but the live replay. And it would be, okay, Johnny signed, and we'll do that one day. And then the next day we'll do Amber's. But the way he cut it up, that didn't happen. But now we have gone through everything. The case is done. All that's left is to wait. What will you think if Amber is not only isn't ordered to pay, but what if Amber is awarded this $100 million? I at least hope that in the case that does happen, there's a huge backlash. Not because I am trying to be petty, but because that's just incorrect. That's not how this should go. And for her to get $50 million after making up all of these lies and dragging his name through the mud for 6 years, it's just not right. And so, again, based on the parameters of the trial, as I've been saying, it could still go that way. And I'm just hoping that as a culture, in the eyes of public opinion, this trial was over before it even began. And because these are public figures, that's kind of okay. When it comes to just regular people going through things and they become famous, because like if we think of like a Kyle Rittenhouse, the reason that it's not just enough for the case to be taken seriously, but that we actually needed the not guilty verdict in order for justice to be upheld is because of the facts of the situation. But it's more so because that was Kyle Rittenhouse's chance to redeem himself. There is no anything else after that. After this trial, Johnny Depp and Amber Heard will still have avenues to speak to whoever they want, and so that does change things a little bit. And so even if it doesn't go the way that we want it, I'm very, very, very glad that this was all aired out for the public to see. I think it was super necessary. And I just hope that it helps women. Let's not even put it that way. I hope that it helps with anybody who is an abuser to think twice about how they behave, because they can end up here. And more specifically, I hope that men can feel comfortable coming forward if they are victims of abuse. Because as we've seen here with Johnny Depp, one of the most famous people in the world, I mean, not like number one, but how many people are household names like Johnny Depp? Not very many. And he's one of them. And he came forward, and he's being taken seriously. So if they'll take him seriously, that only trickles down. And all I want is the best for really everybody, but very much in particular for men to have an outlet. I think that's a hugely important thing. So that is the trial. I hope you guys got some value out of this. If you didn't get a chance to sit down and watch everything, using the closing arguments to kind of recap everything, I hope that was helpful to you. If there is more stuff going on, I've been buried in this trial. I kind of been missing out on the news all week. So if there's other stuff that you would like me to go through, please let me know. Leave it in the comments. You can always find me online at on Twitter or Instagram. I'm on TikTok. I don't really use it that much, but IDRYBlutch right here. You can always find me there. And like I said, I hope you guys got some value out of this. And I'm only getting better. We're only just starting doing this stuff. I am currently taking the lead attorney, the guy who we were just watching. He has a live streaming course. You may notice that I've been doing a couple more lives lately, and that's what I want to do. I want to make sure that you guys are part of this. I don't want to just be. I don't want it to just be one way. I want to, have a conversation with you guys every time I'm here. That's what I want this to be. I want this to be a community, and I want you guys to be just as much a part of it as I am. So with that being said, I appreciate you guys tuning in. There are some support links in the description, or will be shortly, if you really enjoyed it. But if it is completely free to like, comment, subscribe, share it with all your friends. And even if you don't want to do that, you just want to sit at home and think about how great I am and how awesome this channel is, you can do that too. Until next time, I am out of here.